Good evening, I'm Lovette Williams and welcome to Inside the African Community. Here with me today is the founder of SOT Magazine, Sidique Ba. Did I pronounce that right?
Sidique Ba.
Sidique. Pardon me. Sidique Ba, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
That's good. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Sidique.
Well, a little bit about myself. I've been here now for, let's say, about 14 years. And I happen to be among the first sort of like Sierra Leone Liberians who came to Adelaide. I'm among that first batch, and since then I've been living in Adelaide. I'm married and been to uni. I've worked and studied and done some work at work in government, and currently I work at the Multicultural Communities Council of South Australia, and I also have a magazine that I do on the side, and that's what I can say about myself, really. And I'm very much involved in my community as well.
And that is the
Sierra Leone community. I'm originally from Sierra Leone.
Your independence is coming up soon.
Yeah, the independence, it's coming up soon. May 2nd, I think. 2nd of May.
And would you be celebrating that?
Yeah, I'll be part of that. I've always been part of that. So the past years that I've been here, so I always look forward to it.
How many years independence celebration would you be doing this year?
This will be the 54th independence.
Wow. Congratulations.
So it's been a long time since independence.
So let's talk SOT Magazine here. Tell us about the SOT Magazine, the history behind everything.
Yeah, well, SOT Magazine, look, I used to be a journalist back home. I used to be a news reporter. I studied journalism in Sierra Leone, and before the war I was doing reporting for the Statesman newspaper, which was like a local tabloid back home. And when the war came, things changed. I was there during most part of the war, but then I fled in 1999, went to Guinea and lived there as a refugee for a while. But I came here because of being a journalist, I should say, because some of the other journalists too who were living in Sierra Leone fled to Guinea. So we met in Guinea and we decided to form like an association of journalists in exile, sort of. And we approached the UN and lobbied to be relocated to somewhere else rather than Guinea. And we got lucky and we got sent to Australia. So that's how I came to Australia, and I decided, okay, I like journalism, so sorry, I have a bit of a cold, so seems to be playing up a bit. Yeah, so when I came here, because of my journalist background, I decided to go to uni, and I did multimedia at uni here at the University of South Australia. I finished that and was hoping to get into journalism, and it didn't work out because it's very competitive. Getting jobs here in your field of study is not easy. You come with the dream, you come with that hope and aspiration that I'm going to do this, but then when you get here you realize, well, it's different from what you can get. It's different from what you really want. So I had to settle for different sort of jobs, and I would say I've been a bit lucky as well, because I ended up getting a good job when I finished uni. I worked for a senator for South Australia. I worked for her for like almost 6 years. I worked as an electorate officer. I worked as an advisor to a senator who was also shadow minister for citizenship and multicultural affairs. So I did that for over 6 years, and after that I worked for 2 years at the FIST, which is the Department of Further Education and Employment. I worked there for 2 years, and now I'm working at Multicultural Communities Council. And during all this time, I never had the time to actually do what I really like to do, which is journalism. I like writing, I like reading, knowing what's happening around, talking to people and trying to bring out what's happening in the communities. And it's something it's always been at the back of my mind, and I've always been thinking I need to do something about it, but there never seemed to be a perfect time. I started putting it off, saying I'll wait when there is time, but the time never seemed to come around. So I realized there'll never be a right time to do it. So 2 years ago, I decided, you know what, I'll start this magazine. So I started Salt Magazine, and the name Salt, I didn't want to just call my magazine, because a lot of people, whatever they do, they like calling it African something, either Africa or Zafric or this, that they like to try to mix Australia, So I just thought I wanted something different, and I was trying to think of something that sort of connects, that's very common between Australians, Africans, and Then when the name Salt occurred to me, when the thought came to me of salt, I'm like, okay, hold on, salt sounds good, because salt is something that is very historical and is very important to us as Africans. Food-wise, we always like salt in our food. We also like salt has been part of our history. People used to sell salt, it used to be traded, people used to trade it across Africa and stuff. So it's an important part of our history. And salt is something that we share with the rest of the world. Everybody here and there, you might use salt for something, And I thought in Australia as well, it's symbolic as well for me in a way the more I thought about it, because I realized as well, in Australia, the food, or if you are walking around the street or so in the restaurant, the smell will always be very nice, very inviting. But when you get their food and you taste it, there is no salt. So I just find it ironic as well. I'm like, I'll call my magazine Salt, like we'll be adding salt. It's also a pun, it's a play on the word, Sort of we're adding salt to the flavor, trying to give us some kind of flavor, So I thought it sounds good, So I went on with the name, and I decided to start the magazine because, as I said, I really think it's important that we have a voice, we have a platform through which, as a community, we can express ourselves. People will start to hear our own voices, because with the media, most of the time, it's only when things are negative or things are really good, that's the only time we get some bit of attention. But in reality, there's so much happening in our communities, people are doing big things, people are doing great things, young people are aspiring for big things, It's good to start to identify these people, bring them out there so people will know about them, and bring even stories from home to here, and also encourage people to share their thoughts, and I thought that is something that we need as a community, because the community is growing, the African community is growing, so we do need an outlet, we do need some form of a medium, like even what you guys are doing now, we need a format, we need a way to reach out to people. So that's how Salt came about. I started it, and since then, I should say, I've had really a lot of people getting interested, people calling me from Sydney, Melbourne, Queensland. People are writing stories that I've been invited, to go there to cover stories. I've met people since I've started. I've been able to interview people, that are really big artists, I've been able to interview artists like Yusundur, spoke to Chimamanda, Baba Mal. All this is through Salt. Like, people contact me. At the moment, there's this guy coming from America, Cornel West. He's a very big guy in America. He talks about racism and all that. I've been contacted as well to follow up with him when he gets here. I've sent him questions now. He's going to be answering them, and I'm putting them up in my website, So it's all about promoting the community, and that's what Salt is all about. Yeah, it's about giving voice to the African community.
You talk about giving voice to the African community, but also Salt has touched some international stories.
Yeah.
Like the international names that you mentioned earlier. Tell me a little bit about those international stories, and what do you reflect on those stories when you bring out those stories in Salt Magazine?
Well, for me, when I talk with people from like the international arena or so, it's good for me. One, it's for the African community here to get that, to feel close at home as well. It sort of brings us together. It's like when we live in Australia now, we are in like a cocoon. We are like in a box, sort of. you know. We only sort of get now exposed to things that are recycled within Australia in terms of information or stuff that we see on TV, but things that will really matter to us. Despite now, okay, we have the internet and all this, but I think it's good to be bringing this important aspect of Africa back to Africans who are here. You know, if I interview someone like Chimamanda, she's a big writer, you know, she's very big out there. It sort of will reflect on our younger people here as well, you know. It sort of give them that aspiration or that hope to see, to hear her, you know, to listen to her or see what she have to say might inspire younger people from here as well to know that they can do these things, they can aspire towards being somebody like her. And
so it's focusing on the positives.
That's what the magazine is all about as well, you know. I'm not really looking at going out there and trying to talk negative things about fellow Africans or trying to bring people down. It's about uplifting our people, you know, giving people the hope, giving people the understanding that we can do more, and just encouraging people to, you know, strive for their, you know, for the best. You know, that's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm hoping for.
That's great. That's really good that you're shining a light on the positive. I think a lot of us, as a young person talking to you as well, I think it's very important that we see the positive, because sometimes it can be daunting. Which takes me to my next question. I noticed that the first edition of SOP Magazine 2015 highlights the challenges faced by many African Australians. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the challenges faced by African Australians, that's an issue, you know, and anywhere you go, people always face challenges. But when we migrate to this country, the challenges are really diverse, but we have to challenge them and we have to face them as well. We can't just allow it to bring us down. Like, the challenges that we face are something we have to stand up to, and they vary, as I said, you know, because the first thing I would like to talk about in terms of the challenges will be when we arrive in Australia, we find ourselves in a new world, in a country where things are different, things are done differently. So we have to adapt. That is for us. I'm not sure for you, maybe you grew up here also, you know, but for people like us, we used to do things differently, and now we find ourselves in a system where really it's completely, you know, different. Now you have to find ways how to live within this new society. The expectations are different, you know, and you come with all these dreams, with all these hopes. You know, we came here thinking, well, it's going to be like paradise, you know, we're just going to chill, we want to enjoy it, there's going to be money, there's going to be, you know, and suddenly we start to realize that's not the case, you know. You have to start paying bills. You have to start thinking, oh man, how am I going to survive? You know, like, how am I going to help people back home? Now people are calling you, going, bro, what's happening? And you're like, sometimes you don't answer your phone. Now, like me, I don't answer my phone 70% of the time. Calls from Africa. I'm like, no way. Because the problems, you know, I can't handle that. But these are expectations. Before, when I was leaving, I was full of that confidence that I'm coming over here and I'll be in a position to help people back home, you know. I was telling that to my friends. I was giving them confidence. No worry, bro. It's going to be good, you know. Now I'm here. It's completely, you know, now I have to manage first, pay my bills and find ways to survive, you know, mortgage and all this. So life is very different. So how are we going to manage our lives here, you know? Balance it out without going crazy, you know. That's like the new challenge we face, you know. And some people now, you know, not everyone can, you know, survive, you know. Like it's for me, that's one of the main challenges. There are so many other issues within, like the problems between African to Africans, trying to pull each other down, which is very common from back home, but I don't want to go much on that. I just know that the main challenge, which I would like to talk about, is the fact that it's very different here.
I read a couple of the articles in SOP Magazine for 2015, their first edition, and one of the main challenges that was highlighted was the lack of recognition of their foreign qualifications, and many people migrate with a qualification from back home in Africa to Australia, and they're not recognized, and they have to go through a whole different system of, you know, either going back to university or starting. Even you've mentioned earlier, as a journalist in your country, you work as a journalist, but coming here, you had to go back into university and study all over again. And even as that, you did not get into journalism. And even though you are doing journalism now because you have your own magazine, so tell me, I want to know about your personal experience, that the challenge that you have to face with that, and how does that make you feel?
Yeah, well, look, in that regard, with that challenge, everybody have their own sort of story to that side of things. You know, like for me, I would say when I came to Australia and I tried to find my way, it was difficult, but not in terms of the educational aspect of it. But as you mentioned as well, in terms of getting the right sort of job, or to get a job that sort of suits your qualification, that's a challenge, you know. But I try to be real about it as well, because after being here for a while, what I've come to realize is that even for the Australians here themselves, getting jobs, certain jobs out there, is very competitive, it's very challenging. So it's the nature of the system. That's all what I was talking about. We have to like adapting to this system and understanding this system. For us who are like the new wave of migrants as Africans coming here, we have to be realistic at the end of the day as well, you know. We'll try, but we will not be able maybe to get to that level. Some of us might slip through and manage to make it, you know, but we just have to find ways and find a balance and find a way to live our lives, and maybe look after our kids and give them the right sort of education, the right sort of advice, so that because they are in a better position, better placed to get to these places, you know, they won't be affected as much. But really, Australia have their own standard, you know, and that's why it's different from Africa in the first place. So if you come here with an African qualification, I mean, your experience is not up to standard. Somehow you need to go through some process to get yourself in line with the system. If if you can't do that, it's a bit hard. But those are challenges. Well, how do we overcome them now? It's either you get in and just try to go with the flow, but you don't have to beat yourself for that, you know. You have to find ways to survive. You know, that's all. It's a challenge, but it's because some people will take it very personal. You know, they'll think like, wow, I can't do this. I was doing all this before, now I have to come and do this. Then they might make it a bit personal and become bitter from within, when in reality, you just have to measure, you have to get up to the standard that exists in this system. If you can't, you have to find something else, you know. And they can't lower the standard in Australia just so that we can fit. Because what that will do will bring the whole system down at the end of the day anyway. So really, people have to measure up. Is how I will think of it. I might be wrong, but that's just how I look at it.
In the article that I read from within the sub magazine, it stated particularly the foreign qualification is not being recognized. However, there are other foreign qualification that is recognized. So from a European perspective, say I did a study in England and I moved to Australia, I would not have to go through all of that to get a job as a journalist or as a doctor. But because my qualification was from Africa, I have to come through and do a whole lot of going through the system again. What's your thought on that?
You see, it comes again to information. It's about people trying to get the right information as well, you see, because the foreign qualification, you see, we ran that story to talk about the problems people face, you know, and the challenges, the way it affects people when they arrive in this country and they have to go through some process to get their qualification recognized and all that. That doesn't apply just to people from Africa, actually. People from Asia, and even people who are from Europe also. You see, I worked at the FIST, the Department of Further Education. I was there for like 2 years, and during that time, I had the opportunity to even work around the office of the Skills Recognition Office. there are standards that are set up in Australia. Somebody who's done electricity in the UK, for instance, you can't just come to Australia and be an electrician. You have to go through some tests. You have to go through a system. They have to check you. They have to test you, because it's not the same. The way things are set up here in terms of electrical engineering, like wiring and stuff, is different. So you have to go through the process, you know, and then your skill will be recognized. I'm from Sierra Leone, and I can tell you for sure that the Sierra Leone educational system is rated to Australian standard. Like if you have a Sierra Leone, if you're from a university in Sierra Leone and you have the qualification from our university, it will be recognized here. That's why it is a West African state, you know. We used to even have a friend who now is in Perth. He's a doctor there, Dr. Mike. He came here, he had a, you know, he went there and he had to do a bit of studies, but he was, some of his, yeah, it was sort of, some of it was recognized, you know. So it's just, you are in a different land. That's, for me, that's the point. We are in a different country with different set of rules and different standards, and it's a matter of meeting those standards. And it is a challenge for you now. If you come here as a new person, you know, you have to survive. And Australia might go to Africa maybe, and they will not check his credentials as much, but still for him to survive there, he or she will have to find a way to balance and meet with the way things are done in Africa, which can be completely different. But you have to know how to cut corners. Like if you are in Africa now, just because you are from Australia, you have all this degree and all this knowledge. You have to find ways to do things the way people are doing things in Africa, which means you have to learn the way of the Africans, which you might have to start, you know, giving small money here or there to get there to do the. So even with all your high standard, you have to break it and get down to doing things so that you know. So for us who came here as migrants or as the first people to arrive from our own part of the world, it's a challenge, you know, and we just have to face it. Some of us will be lucky to get through, as I said earlier, and for some it will be hard, you know, but I don't want to blame the system too much for that. It's just part of life. It's how I will look at it.
You have a positive aspect on life, so that's good. Yeah. I want to go back to Salt Magazine. Yeah. What does Salt Magazine hold for us? What's the future look like for Salt Magazine?
Well, if things work out, because I've been spending at times, most of the time, spend my money, try to get it out there. But if Salt Magazine works out, what I'm looking at is, for, just as I've said before, I want it to be a platform. I want it to be a magazine where we can see stories of the African community here, you know. We see the stories of what our young people are doing, and also for it to be a voice, you know, like if somebody want to say something, somebody want to express their feeling about an issue or something, like even with this foreign qualification also, whatever view everyone have, I want it to be a platform in which people can express these views, so that the government too will look at SALT as a resourceful tool that they can look into to see how the Africans are thinking, you know, because that way they'll start to understand how we look at things as well, you know. And even for ordinary Australians, if they look at SALT, I want them to look at it and see, like, because sometimes people see us walking up and down the streets and it's not easy to work out who we are, you know. But like this can be a way in which you will start to identify the feeling of the Africans within this system. You know, this is how we feel, this is how we think we are represented. This is like, if people are not comfortable with the fact that they are finding it hard to get jobs because of their qualifications, as we said, well, the government needs to know about that so they can find ways to help people, you know. And yeah, so it's to be a voice, you know. That's how I look at it. And I'm looking at in the future as well to start working with news, like reporters as well from back home, you know, to be giving us information about what's happening. In this regard now, because I don't want to be too involved like in the political aspect of what's going on in Africa. But just like stories from Africa to be brought to us here, that we can look at how things are moving in terms of development. No negativity as such, but just looking at things from a real perspective, human interest stories, like how people are surviving, what people are doing that is positive, or what is really affecting people back home, so that we'll be a bit closer to home as well, to where we came from, because it's very easy to forget. We're really far from there. So that's another thing I want to bring into SALT as well, you know, and also keep promoting the young people, keep promoting what young people are doing, you know, like even what you guys are doing now, you know. I will look whenever you have it up there, if wherever you're going to be using it as a platform, I will be happy to talk about it, to engage with you guys in another format as well, and try to promote what you are doing, you know. So that's the idea.
That's good. So tell us, how can we reach the SALT magazine, or how can we get our hands on it, so people who might be watching or will listen on later, how can they get in touch with SALT magazine, or where can they get a copy, or how?
Well, you can start by going to our website. It's www.saltmagazine.org, and you can also pick it in some of the shops. Like I do take it to some of the African shops around. I do drop copies there, but the only thing, because it's been free, people really just take them. So if I leave them there, whether it's 50 or so, people will grab them within 3-4 days. You might not find them there for the community, so I've been doing that as well. So but if you go online and you subscribe, because all the information is on our website, on our Facebook page, and you get in touch with SALT magazine. As I said, yeah, we're really happy to get more people interested, get more people to go on the website, go on Facebook and like our page, and help the magazine grow, because it's for the community, you know. It's not about money as much as it's about us being represented, and I'm doing it because I think there is a need for it, and I like communication, I like media, it's what I'm into, you know, and I'll always be doing that, you know. So,
and you mentioned free. You mentioned that it is free.
Yeah.
Can I just ask, how do you generate income to sort of publish the magazine?
Well, I've been trying to get advertisements from businesses, from local businesses, and which is not really working well, but I've been managing to get advertisements. The only time I haven't been able to get advertisement is for this last edition, but I still have to bring it out. I still have to publish it and use my own money. But for all the other publications, the other 5 or so, I've always been lucky enough to, you know, get 2 or 3 ads to go with the magazine, and that's always been able to pay for the print. Yeah, so yeah, that's that.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Is there anything else you would like to add?
Look, I would just like to say thank you guys for this chance, and thank you for what you are doing as well. I hope it all goes well for you guys, you know, because at the end of the day, we are all trying to do the same thing, you know. So I really appreciate your initiative. I think it's good, and all I will say is, for the African community as well, I think people really need to step up and try to be more positive, and try to do things that will bring us together, and you know, and sort of, yeah, let's not allow the system to bring us down, you know. We should try and rise above it and be on top of it, and not. If I may, can I talk a little bit more anyway? Yeah, because the other thing as well is, we look at, you know, there is this feeling around as well that we felt sometimes it be like this system, there is sort of racism and stuff like that, you know. For me personally, I think that is common everywhere in the world. Like, we have to find ways to rise above these things, and we should not allow them to sort of blind us from the opportunities and the chances that we can get from this society. We have to understand that, well, there might be a couple of few people who think like that, who act negative towards us, but that should not bring us down, and that should not make us think we have to paint the society as a country of racists, you know. We have to look at the bigger picture. If they were like that, then maybe we shouldn't be here in the first place, you know. So for the fact that we are given the opportunity to come here and to grow, let's look at the positives and do things that are more positive for ourselves, and yeah, let's not allow, you know, negative sort of to affect all the other positive things that are out there for us to achieve, you know. So that's just like a final message, yeah, for the African brothers and sisters out there. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much.
No worries.
I would like to ask my team, is there anything else you'd like to ask that you think has not been covered up and you want to know more? Because he's here. It's our chance.
Yeah, okay. If I may ask, Sidique, you write extensively about African community, and you talk about positive things. But what are some of the negatives that you try to overcome through your positive messages?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Yeah, well, look, I look at trying to talk about things that we should do that will help us to get things that will sort of that will get us out of the kind of situation we find ourselves in. Because if you look at the moment, the African community, for instance, like here in South Australia, we're not doing much as a community, you know. So instead of for me to say I'm going to write stories or interview people and try to ask them like, why is the African community not doing well, or you guys are not doing well, we're hearing that you are doing this or you are doing this. For me, I'll try to talk to them or talk to people or try to write about issues that can be positive that people can learn from. Like I don't want to focus on the negative, so I try to sort of take positive stuff out of things that might not be going well. Anyway, some things might not be going well, but you want to talk on the positive, so you try to use the positive angle to sort of bring out good for the community, you know, like, and sort of try to detract people. Just like I've said here, like, I don't want to labor on negative things. Like, there are so many things that we do that we know within ourselves, sometimes within our communities, that are not working for us. But focusing on that, for me, I don't see how that will help us, because all it will do is just add more pressure. It sort of divide us further. So maybe if we start to identify things that will help us come together within that process, people might start to see the light, or people might start to see some good in being together. Like, you know, like some people will, it's very hard, but that's the only way you can try, you know, like, it's not easy, but it's a good question, man. But I really, like, there is not much of a solution, you know. The only way to do it is to keep trying to outline positive, because talking about the negative, it's not going to help. It's just a belief that I have, you know, like, we've tried it even back home. If you look at our politics or our newspapers or so, they just cry the government down every day. That's been happening for the past 20 years. That hasn't stopped people from being corrupt. That hasn't stopped people from still doing things that are negative. So maybe we need another approach, you know. We start to identify things that we can do and find ways in which we can look at the positive and encourage people to follow that path, you know, rather than exposing them, because it's not helping. We've tried it as Africans, but I don't see it helping. All it does is it's bad blood, you know. People start to hate on each other, and the next thing you know is everything is falling apart again, you know. So it's a tough one, man, but that's a tough one, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, that was the founder of Soap Magazine, Mr. Barr. I said it right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, so I'm Lovett Williams, and thanks for listening.